The goal for this panel is kind of to get a glimpse into the mindset of a successful audio professional. We're hoping to uncover some of the influences, experiences, and traits that have contributed to their success, and we'll also learn about some of the struggles and failures they might have faced early on in their careers. Lij Shaw is the owner of the Toy Box Studio and a highly talented producer, engineer, and musician. He built his engineering chops first at Woodland Studios and later at Alex the Great under the guidance of Robin Eaton and Brad Jones. Over the past 2 months, I've had the privilege of interning with Lidge, and it's been an amazing learning experience. He's truly passionate about the art of making records and has a deep affinity for live, in-the-moment recording. Lex Price is a vastly talented producer and multi-instrumentalist. Upon his arrival in Nashville in 1998, Lex quickly made a name for himself as one of the city's most versatile and respected all-around musicians. He has produced acclaimed albums for artists including Mindy Smith, Peter Bradley Adams, Amy Black, and the Westies. Lex is a man of many talents, and we are extremely fortunate to have him with us today. Thanks for being here.
Thank you. Yeah.
Right on,
so, if we could start out, and we'd love to just kind of hear about how you guys met, how you guys know each other. And
do you remember when I met you, Lex?
Yeah, we met at a party.
Yeah, it was Daniel Tashin's party.
Yes. Yeah.
And I remember, I guess it was just like a, introduction through friends. Mm-hmm. But do you remember, like, my, quippy, silly humor upon meeting you?
No.
Yeah, I was so like, I couldn't get over, Lex and thinking about the name Lex Luthor.
Okay, yeah.
So I kept asking you if you were evil by nature. And
that's right.
Just after I met
forgotten,
you.
but yes, yeah.
So, and I'd say it turns out that you are not evil.
Not as evil as you'd think.
But evil when necessary,
yeah.
For the art of making the record.
Yes.
And the music, as the song calls for it.
But yeah, that's it. We were at a party, and Lidge told me, he's like, I've got a studio, come check it out. And then that was it. Here we are. That was cool. 8 years ago.
Yeah, it was about, that was just before, or right when the studio opened, which was 2007. So,
okay.
I was doing the studio in my home before, but when I, moved it into its own building, that was 2007.
Cool,
okay.
Cool. And have you guys worked together? Have you done records together? Or?
Mm-hmm. We've done, we're about to do another record together this month with a really talented individual from Sweden, Anders Elfström. I think this will be our third record doing that together.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And what are some of the others that we've done, Lex?
What have we done? Michael McDermott.
Yep. Peter Bradley Adams. We did some stuff for him.
A group called the Bittersweets.
Yeah, that was the very first thing we did.
That
was the
first
record.
thing. Yeah,
that was a lot of fun.
And some other random stuff.
Some random stuff.
Yeah, some one-off stuff.
Wait, I was.
Robby Hecht.
Yeah, Robby Hecht. But yeah, that's not random at all.
No.
In fact, it was so monumental that it was just taken for granted.
Yeah.
I think we did a couple for Robby.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Cool. And maybe to get some background on you guys, like, what are your early recollections of, like, what was your involvement in music pretty early on in your life, or how did that grow? What are some of your early memories of music?
I grew up, my folks played. They were country, bluegrass type stuff. So it was around, guitars and instruments were.
Oh, cool.
So I started young. Yeah.
Yeah, you were kind of an aficionado. You were like what's the word I'm looking for? You were very good at an early age, right? Didn't you do contests and things like that?
I did. I was a mandolin player first, and then guitar. But I started at 8. And it just went from there.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Mandolin at 8?
Yeah, that's a crazy instrument to start with. Yeah.
That's cool, man.
Did your parents get you kind of going with that? Mm-hmm. Were they supportive of the?
They were.
The lessons and stuff?
I saw somebody playing I saw my cousin playing mandolin, and I thought it was cool. And I told my folks, and they went and got me one. Like the next week, and it actually stuck. I was fascinated.
That's awesome.
I still play it today.
Yeah.
So.
What kind of music did you start out playing?
Bluegrass.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
I've moved far from that, really, but it's still
play some mandolin.
I do, yeah. I still play acoustic stuff, and it's steeped in that acoustic music. But yeah,
the mandolin for you is kind of the secret weapon on a session, as I recall. You know, it's like we're doing all this recording, and then we whip out the mandolin, and you do an overdub, and all of a sudden it's just like
it's great.
Amazing.
It's a cool instrument.
Cool. What about you, Lidge? How'd
So
you get your music start?
Yeah, so I didn't wait until I was 8 years old to start playing. I started at 4 years old and played Suzuki violin for a couple of years there, living in New York City, growing up. And then, of course, I got tired of that, after in my mind, I think I played violin for 4 years as a kid. And in reality, my mom probably scrambled to get me to a handful of lessons, but I did make it to a camp once for Suzuki up in Stevens Point, Wisconsin, when I was a little older with my cousin and my brother. That was a lot of fun. So I think that was my introduction to playing an instrument. And I grew up in New York City, in Brooklyn, till I was 6 years old. So I was just surrounded by some interesting music and that sort of thing. But I do remember the first time music just sort of didn't seem like something that was, something I was going to pursue or something that I was going after as an interest. It was just kind of, it was just there. You just listened to it as in the background. But I remember when I was 12 or maybe 10 or something like that, I got my first clock radio. And so for the first time, I had a radio in my room when the alarm would go off and I'd hear some music. Nice. And the song, my first favorite song that I, started to learn words to and really got into was Lunatic Fringe.
Oh, yeah.
Remember that one?
Yeah.
What is it? I know that you're out there.
Nice.
But so then, then after that, it went on to, I was really into video games and Atari and things like that. So the first record, am I jumping the gun here? Were you going to ask us the
I was
first
going to
record
ask, how did that progress from violin? Like, what came next? Because you obviously play a lot of instruments. And
well, I took piano lessons later in high school, and then by the time I was a senior in high school is when I got my first guitar. My dad got me a guitar for my 18th birthday, and then it was all downhill from there. Pretty much.
So how did the video games factor into all that?
All right. So the video games was the first record that I ever bought was when I was a kid, and I was way into all these video games, and then they came out with Pac-Man Fever, which was a vinyl LP, and it was just all songs that were dedicated to video games. So there was like Centipede and Pac-Man Fever and Frogger and all these games. And we had a snow day, as I recall, and I walked, 5 miles trudging through the snow to the local Kmart to go pick up a copy of this record when it came out. Mm-hmm. And I held on to it all the way, till about, I guess, 15 years ago or a little more than that, at which point I was roommates with Mike Grimes, who has Grimies, which in the basement here in Nashville, and started the Slow Bar. And he's sort of like the definitive vinyl record store here and cool record store in Nashville, although there are many. And when I was roommates with him, he had a collection of like 10,000 records in our apartment. And somehow my tiny collection of records just got absorbed into his. And I moved out and never saw them again. And then they ended up, going into his store and getting sold. So somewhere in Nashville, my copy of Pac-Man Fever exists, and somebody's really enjoying it. I'd like it back. If you're listening to this podcast now.
So you grew up in New York, and Lex, you're from the Northeast region, right? Baltimore area?
Yeah, well, it's Chestertown, but near Baltimore.
Cool. So what was the motivator for coming to Nashville? Was it you were already so into music and it just seemed like a logical move? What was the transition like there?
I mean, I didn't move here until I was 28.
Okay.
So at that point, I went through a period where I didn't do anything musical. And as I got back into it, I thought I need to go someplace that's going to inspire me. Mm-hmm. There wasn't much going on where I was. So it was Nashville, New York, or LA were the three options. And Nashville seemed you know, it was the right decision, but at the time it seemed like for me, the best fit.
Yeah.
So.
But you were already a serious player at that point too. Right?
I was, yeah.
You really were into it.
I wanted to come here to pursue session work,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and be that guy, play a bunch of instruments.
Right.
What made you think that Nashville would welcome a mandolin player?
I don't know. Yeah, and New York was. I live 3 hours from New York, so that was all. That was one of the reasons I didn't. I stopped considering it because I'm like, well, it's 3 hours away.
You're almost too familiar with it.
Even though where I was nothing like it. I just wanted to go farther, you know. So
yeah, you would have had to play electric mandolin.
Yeah,
Be a mandolin rock band.
And when you came to Nashville, was it a difficult transition? Did you how long did it take you to sort of get things rolling? Or
it took a while. I didn't know anybody here.
Yeah.
So a total stranger. So it took a few years to start to meet like-minded folks, you know. And this was in '98. And I was sorting out what I wanted to do anyway, what kind of music, you know. I had to figure out the scene. So
yeah.
It took a few years, you know, and then I started to work with songwriters, and that became kind of my niche is good songwriters and help back them up and support them. And then I would just search out the songwriters that I liked and you know, talk to them, be like, hey, I'd love to play with you. And then
yeah.
So that's where it all started.
Cool.
What were some of your very first moves when you moved down here as far as connecting with music or finding anything that you were interested in? Like if, you know, like, man, you guys, other people that I know who are moving to Nashville looking for internships and things like that, looking for work, you know, they're faced with that very first, like, what do you do first?
Yeah.
Question.
That's a good question. What did I do? I went on tour with a band for, you know, a few weeks. My roommate was offered the gig and he couldn't do it, so he passed it on to me. So that was the first thing I did. But what did I do? I just went around to like songwriting places. What was the name? Radio Cafe.
Oh yeah, right, in East Nashville.
Yeah, places that don't exist anymore. I would just where they were known for. That's where the songwriters would hang.
Yeah.
And play. So I would just haunt those places and you know.
So it's kind of that idea of like find out where the open mics are and go hang out. Meet people there.
Yeah.
Just start there.
Simply that. Yeah.
It's good to know that works.
I think if you have some, you know, if you've got some friends, it might move the process along.
Yeah.
You know. So
cool.
That's the thing to do is make some friends before you move here. There you go.
Know some people.
Know some people.
Yeah. Well, that's cool. How about you, Lidge? What
was the question again? What, like moving down
what
to
was
Nashville,
your
right?
motivator for moving and what was that like, you know, getting into a new city and trying to do music stuff?
Well, so I'll try and keep it kind of short and not let it be long, but I studied architecture first go around. So I was in school in St. Louis, Missouri, getting a 4-year degree in architecture. And, you know, again, I didn't pick up a guitar until I was 18, so senior year of high school. So my whole learning experience of discovering music, discovering bands, discovering guitar, playing in bands, all of that was while I was in college the first time around. But I didn't have any idea that making records or playing guitar was, you know, a choice that I could make as far as what I might do for a living. And so, so after school, I graduated in architecture. I took my guitar and a backpack, and I went backpacking around Europe for a couple of months, and just kind of took a break in the middle. And my brother was in his I guess it was his junior year of college, where he had been in Minneapolis, but he decided he wanted to go to some faraway exotic place for his junior year. And he chose Hong Kong University and it ended up there for a year. And so he was already, you know, he was like, you know, he's the next younger sibling, and we kind of both discovered music together. But he had that, you know, the wherewithal to decide that he wanted to actually learn music and study music while he was in college. So he was studying piano and had played drums. And he went and got himself a job at the Hong Kong Jazz Club in Lang Kwai Fong. I still remember the name of it. And so he was working there, seeing all these jazz bands come through, and he met these other guys who were in a blues band. And so he got a gig playing drums in a blues band in Hong Kong, and they had all these regular gigs there. Meanwhile, I'm back in London, you know, working at TGI Fridays and doing telemarketing for a motorcycle courier company. And he calls me up and he's like, you know, Lidge, this is kind of crazy, but our guitar player just left. We need a guitar player. You want to come be in a band with us in Hong Kong? And I thought about it for about 2 seconds, and I was like, all right, cool, sure, I'll be there. So I, you know, pulled out my American Express and got myself a plane ticket to Hong Kong that left a week later, and I left my my 2 jobs, left my apartment, and left my girlfriend of 2 weeks. And flew to Hong Kong. Sorry, Angie. And flew to Hong Kong, and played in a band for a half year with my brother. It was like 4 months, something like that. But played in a blues band, and so that was the first time I was ever just playing music all the time, loving it, having a great time. And then we went in, of all places, we went into a studio in Hong Kong, and I saw the inside of a pro studio. And I took one look at it, and I was like, wow, this is really cool. I think I would much rather do this, and I think I could do this than architecture. And so right then and there, I made up my mind that when I came back over to the U.S., I would find out about learning how to make records and you know, see if there were schools that taught you how to do that and that sort of thing.